What's up guys, my name is Ace, and it looks like Call of Duty is finally taking a fairly big leap forward when it comes to their anti-cheat efforts. They just announced today that starting with Season 5 tomorrow, they will be implementing Secure Boot. And for those that aren't familiar, they did describe here, this is an industry standard hardware-based security feature built into CPUs or motherboards that will verify the PC's boot performance has not been tampered with when you boot your PC up. This might sound familiar for people that have been keeping up with Battlefield news because Battlefield 6 is also using Secure Boot, and it's going to be required to play the game on PC. And it looks like Call of Duty is either following suit or perhaps this was already well underway before this was ever announced for Battlefield. Either way, this is also coming for Call of Duty. One thing to keep in mind is starting tomorrow with Season 5, Secure Boot will be available but not necessary. They will give you a notification if you don't have Secure Boot on, and this is designed to give everybody time to activate Secure Boot because this is something you have to go in and do by yourself. But it looks like they're aiming to have this fully active by the time Black Ops 7 launches, and that means you will have to have it active in order to even play the game. And this form of anti-cheat should have a very notable impact on the cheating situation. To be clear, it's definitely not going to be getting rid of all forms of cheating or anything, but it looks like it's at least going to make it that much more difficult for cheaters to slip through the cracks. So good news there. However, it is worth noting there are some downsides that come with this, and we've seen this with the implementation of Secure Boot into Battlefield 6, with a lot of people trying to get that set up and ready for the beta, which is also starting tomorrow because you need that active to get into the beta. And I've seen multiple reports of people's entire PCs getting bricked while trying to activate this. I don't know if that was a user error thing or just a hardware issue of some sort, but there's definitely at least some cause for concern there. Also, just the sheer fact that for a lot of people that are computer illiterate, this is a fairly advanced thing for them to be able to handle. So they'll likely have to do a little bit of research and watch some tutorials, for instance, in order to figure that out. And it may vary from motherboard to motherboard or CPU to CPU. So I think this is going to cause a lot of annoyance for people, but at the end of the day, it should have a notable impact on cheating. Now, they did also clarify that this is just a new thing that they're adding on top of all of the anti-cheat measures that they already have. So it's not replacing their anti-cheat or anything, it's just working alongside all of the anti-cheat that was already present. Next up, they're making another improvement here, at least for the ranked play side of things. With Season 5, they're making it so Game Pass free trials on PC will be unable to access ranked play. And this may also cut down at least a little bit on the cheating situation there as well, because it is a common tactic for cheaters to use a free trial so they don't have to put any money up front in order to get into the game and cheat, and then when they get banned from the game, it's really no monetary loss for them because it was totally free. They didn't even have to pay for like a single month of Game Pass. Whereas with this new policy, at least those players won't be able to access ranked play. They will still be able to access campaign, zombies, and regular multiplayer though. Additionally, they provided an update on detections, targeting, boosting, and teaming. And this goes alongside the massive ban wave that happened a couple weeks back, I think it was, where tons of people got permanently banned for going AFK or for boosting in some way. And I want to read at least part of this here. They mentioned boosting services often flood lobbies with low effort accounts used to illegitimately farm XP and complete challenges. And then these accounts are later sold as ranked play ready, since you have to play a certain number of ranked play matches and reach a certain level, I believe. And that's designed as an anti-cheat effort for ranked play. So this is one method that players were using to bypass that. They basically farm these accounts so they don't have to actually play and achieve those levels to access ranked play, and then they sell those accounts. Now, they also mentioned additionally methods like continuously idling to farm XP without playing the game and using tactics to bypass idle detections. So that'd be things like setting up a macro, or as simple as like putting a rubber band on your controller, for instance, so you don't get kicked for being AFK. That can create a negative experience for entire lobbies, especially for players that are matched on the same team as the account that is boosting. They clarified that this is mentioned in the terms of use, and any form of boosting is against policy. However, they will be making adjustments to better reflect the details listed in the terms of use, because a lot of people were pointing to the fact that boosting specifically mentioned working with other players and colluding with other players to boost, whereas AFK farming, you're not really working with other players, you're doing that on your own. So they are updating their policy to better reflect that. And then they talked about the recent permanent bans. They said, recently, we permanently banned accounts where boosting made up the majority of their recent in-game activity. These were not random one-off cases, but extreme and repeated patterns of abuse. We focus our enforcement on deliberate cheating behavior, and boosting is no exception. It undermines fair competition, and like all cheating, it won't be ignored. So they're standing their ground on this. They're taking a very hardline approach on this. I do like the fact that they clarified here that this wasn't happening for people that just did this like once or twice. It wasn't one-off thing, or somebody maybe just accidentally left their account AFK. At least according to what they stated here, this is for people that were doing this for the majority of their recent playtime. So that does make the permanent bans at least a little bit more understandable, especially combined with the fact that this was meant to be targeting people that were using these methods to create cheatable accounts that they could then sell. So I do understand a bit more where they're coming from with this. I still do think an instant permanent ban for a lot of those accounts is a bit on the harsh side, especially with their terms of service not being abundantly clear at the time, although they are clarifying that now. I still do think a warning would have been more appropriate, or a temporary ban. And then if they continue with that, then a permanent ban is totally fair. At the end of the day, it's their policy. They decide how they want to enforce it, and they are taking a very hardline approach here. Now, after that, they just discussed that they are continuing to disrupt cheating networks. They're targeting cheat providers using any legal means necessary. A lot of them are shutting down or have shut down in the past because of this. Of course, when that happens, usually new ones pop up, oftentimes from the same people. They just sort of bypass that by creating a new company that creates cheating software. And they just mentioned that they are continuing their efforts with this constantly alongside their anti-cheat efforts. So they're targeting the supply and the demand when it comes to this. Now, finally, in this blog, they just answered a few community questions here, and I think it's important to go through this since a lot of people do have these questions. I had some of these questions as well. The first thing is, when Black Ops 7 is released, will Warzone adopt the TPM 2.0 and secure boot requirements? And essentially their answer is they're working on it and they're going to see how things play out throughout Season 5, but they're not setting a hard date on that for sure. It looks like they're trying to get things all organized and set up for the launch of Black Ops 7, but they're not officially announcing that you absolutely need it to start playing Black Ops 7 when it first launches. Then a big question regarding privacy when it comes to Secure Boot, since it does access your PC on a fairly deep level here. Does Secure Boot give Call of Duty access to data like my login credentials or private files? And they clarified, this process does not access your personal files or information, only Windows diagnostic data. These are strictly features built into Windows. They run before the operating system loads, checking that your system hasn't been tampered with. When you launch Call of Duty, Windows tells us whether your system passed these checks. If your system fails, you won't be able to play until Windows confirms everything is secure. This is strictly about system integrity and protecting the game environment from cheats or tampering. Next, as I mentioned earlier, they just reaffirmed that these new anti-cheat methods are not replacing existing anti-cheat methods. They're working in collaboration with the existing anti-cheat. And then finally, I would say the most important question here is, will these new anti-cheat methods end cheating? And they were clear to mention here, no, it's not going to stop cheating in all forms. It will help them combat cheating, and it will raise the barrier of entry for many forms of cheating. But at the end of the day, this is an arms race. There's always going to be a cat and mouse game. No matter what you do to improve your anti-cheat, as long as there is a huge monetary incentive, which there is for Call of Duty, cheaters will essentially always find some way to bypass that because there's a whole lot of money to be made. So this is once again just a constant effort. And from the sounds of it, this one is going to be a pretty big step forward, at least once we get to the point where it's required. Because with Season 5, like I said, it's not going to be required to activate Secure Boot, so we shouldn't be seeing any really immediate results of this. But once it's required to play on PC, then I think that should be cutting down on cheating at least to a noticeable degree. And there we go. That's pretty much it. That is going to wrap it up for this big anti-cheat update for Call of Duty. Overall, just like I say with every one of these anti-cheats blogs, all of this sounds great on paper. I'm glad to see they're continuing to work to improve anti-cheat. At the end of the day, actions speak louder than words, and we'll just have to wait to see how effective this really is at stopping cheating. Of course, I'm not expecting this to finally stop cheating once and for all in Call of Duty, but I do think it could have a notable impact, and I hope it does. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts and opinions on this, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the fact that Call of Duty is implementing Secure Boot? And also, what are your thoughts on them taking that hardline approach for any form of AFK or boosting in the game? Do you guys agree with that now that they've explained themselves a little bit more? Or do you think that was still too harsh without any form of a warning first? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.